Have you ever faced a moment where everything was on the line and you had no idea how it would turn out? That's where we find Esther in chapter 5. She is standing between fear and faith, power and risk, silence and courage. And what she chooses next will shape not only her story, but the destiny of her people. Hi, I'm Heather Jennings, a certified professional mental health life coach and a Live Well health coach. And in this video, we're diving into Esther Chapter 5, a story that shows us what it looks like to walk with courage, even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. If you've been following this series, welcome back. And if you're new here, thank you so much for joining us today. We're happy to have you here. Please go ahead and make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already so you don't miss any part of this powerful journey through the book of Esther. Up to this point in our story, Esther's world has completely changed. She began as a young Jewish woman living quietly in the exile under Persian rule, a world that prized beauty and power and political strategy above almost everything else. Through a series of royal decrees, she was taken from her home and placed in the palace of King Xerxes, one of the most powerful rulers in the ancient world. The Persian Empire stretched from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces filled with wealth, influence, and strict hierarchy. No one approached the king without being summoned, not even the queen. This wasn't just a palace protocol, it was a life or death law meant to protect the king's authority. By chapter 4, that law became a wall between Esther and her people, Haman. Well, between her and her people. He manipulated Xerxes into signing a decree to destroy all the Jews in the empire. And Mordecai, her cousin and mentor, urges Esther to speak up, reminding her that perhaps she was placed in her royal position for such a time as this. And now, as we step into chapter 5, that moment of destiny arrives. The fasting is over. The prayers have been spoken, and Esther must decide. Will she risk her life to stand before the king or stay silent and safe behind the palace walls? This is the turning point where faith moves preparation to action. So the chapter opens with Esther dressing in her royal robes and standing in the inner court of the king's palace. It's not just an act of bravery. It's a moment heavy with cultural and symbolic weight. In Persian society, clothing represented identity, authority, and purpose. By putting on her royal garments, Esther wasn't pretending to be fearless. She was stepping into her God-given role. As she waits in silence before the throne, she can see King Xerxes seated across the courtyard, the most powerful man in the empire. Everyone in the room knows the law. To approach him uninvited could mean instant death. Her heart must have been racing. Her breath must have been shallow. But she stood firm. She must have been terrified, you guys. But she stands firm in who she is and why she's there. And then the unthinkable happens. The king looks up. His eyes meet hers, and scripture says when the king saw Queen Esther standing in the courtyard, she gained favor in his eyes. That line is everything. Esther didn't even speak yet. She didn't plead her case. She simply stood, clothed in courage and grace, and favor found her. Then the king extended his gold scepter towards her, the unmistakable sign of mercy and welcome. Esther slowly approaches reverently and touches the tip of the scepter. That simple act sealed her acceptance. It was a gesture of humility and respect, acknowledging the king's authority while revealing her own strength and grace. In that single exchange, fear lost its power and favor filled that room. The moment wasn't just about royal favor. It was about divine alignment. The way Esther carried herself in that room teaches us something powerful about presence. The power of presence, scripture tells us, is that the king was pleased to see Esther and extended the golden scepter. That single gesture changed everything. In ancient Persia, the golden scepter symbolized authority and acceptance. When Xerxes extended it, he wasn't just allowing Esther to live. He was granting her favor and access. Notice how Esther doesn't rush. She doesn't demand. She doesn't panic. She stands in grace. Sometimes influence doesn't shout. It simply stands with confidence. Let me ask you a couple of reflection questions. How can you bring calm presence instead of pressure into your next hard conversation? What would it look like to trust your preparation and let peace lead instead of fear? When the king looks upon Esther with favor, he says, "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? Even up to half of the kingdom, it will be given to you." At first glance, this sounds extravagant, but in Persian court language, it was a royal idiom, a formal expression of generosity and trust. The phrase, "even to half of the kingdom," wasn't meant literally. It was the king's way of saying, "You have my full favor. Speak freely." This is a dramatic shift from where Esther stood moments earlier, risking her life to enter the throne room. Now she's standing in favor. The danger has turned into an open door, and Esther's reply, "if it pleases the king," is equally significant. It's a mark of wisdom, honor, and cultural awareness in Persian court etiquette. This was a respectful way to introduce a request. It allowed the speaker to honor the king's authority while still expressing her desire. Esther isn't timid. She's strategic. She leads with respect, not resistance. Instead of revealing Haman's plot immediately, she invites the king and Haman to a banquet. In that culture, banquets were sacred spaces for persuasion and alliance. Building meals represented peace, honor, and mutual respect. Esther understood that hearts often open around the table. So here's a couple more reflection questions for you. How often do we rush to make our case before the atmosphere is ready to receive it? And what would it look like for you to align wisdom with timing in your own story? All right, you guys, we are getting to the banquet strategy. I mean, this is getting exciting. So when the king offers Esther up to half the kingdom, she doesn't reveal Haman's plot right away. Instead, she invites the king and Haman to the banquet. And this isn't hesitation. It's wisdom. In Persian culture, banquets were places of negotiation and influence. Esther understands timing. She's not avoiding the truth. She's preparing the soil for it to take root. At the banquet, she still waits, inviting them again for another the following day. She's pacing the process. She's not forcing it. From a coaching lens, Esther shows us that discernment often means knowing when to speak and when to pause. A couple more reflection questions for you. Are you trying to force a breakthrough that needs more time to unfold? And what might patience look like for you right now if you trusted God's timing? We are on the rising tension, you guys. While Esther is quietly discerning her next step, Haman leaves the first banquet quite proud, but furious when he sees Mordecai at the gate. And Mordecai refuses to bow. His pride turns to rage, and by nightfall, he's plotting Mordecai's execution. His wife and his friends tell him, "We'll construct the gallows or construct a way to kill him." So the gallows he builds are massive, 75 feet high, a public statement of vengeance and power. Haman believes he's in full control, but what he doesn't see is that pride always paves the way for downfall. This tension between Esther's patience and Haman's pride sets the stage for the ultimate reversal, one that no one could have orchestrated but God himself. In chapter 6, everything shifts overnight. The king can't sleep, a forgotten record will be read, and the very man planning destruction will soon be forced to honor the one he hates. The suspense is building, and Esther's quiet courage is about to collide with God's perfect timing. Don't miss what happens next, because chapter 6 is where divine reversal begins. And as we pause here between chapters 5 and 6, remember, this courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply stands. Esther's quiet strength reminds us that favor often finds us when we show up with faith, not fear. If this study encouraged you, tap like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's waiting on God's timing. And tell me in the comments, what part of Esther's courage spoke to your heart today? I'll see you guys in chapter 6, where everything turns, because when faith stands firm, God's favor never fails. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.